Hello everyone, my name is Matthew the Crescent Vale here, and we're working on our next self-graded sports card. We just did a recent video with the 1992-1993 in your face. And you actually can see it before we have the label printed off, and kind of see here a bit of the Zion case. It has two magnets at the top. I really like it. It keeps the card, there's not a lot of jostle. The card doesn't really bounce around inside of these slabs. So if it is shipped, it holds up really well. So you can kind of see that hollow effect there. I just love this card so much. We ended up giving it a 9, and I was debatable if it was 8.5 or 9. So I looked at other grades on it, and it really depends on the grader, if they're lenient or a little more strict. For this one, I would put myself on the slight lenient side compared to being strict. But that's okay. It's getting it down to a science, and there are certain graders I saw give 9.5s, some of the quality if you watch the last video. So it's going to be where it's a science that's perfected over time, and I'm not going to make a disclaimer on every video, every post, that these are approximations. They're almost a hypothetical guess. They are not guaranteed to cross over to the grades that I am estimating to some of the bigger grading companies back at PSA, SGC, CGC. So I just want to make that note. Every video, every post I do is I can't guarantee these grades. Now what I can do is be transparent about how I'm getting to these grades, talking about the centering, talking about how I cross-referenced, how many cards I cross-referenced. In this case, I've been cross-referencing this card for weeks, maybe even years. But just for specifically before this video, I cross-referenced about 5 different graded cards. And they were 9s. One was a 9.5. And it's just interesting because a 9.5 of this specific card can warrant a lot of money. It's even hard to get a 9. I have an 8.5 with this card, and I'm actually very, I don't want to say proud, but pretty excited to even get an 8.5 from a major grading company. So I have, I think, 4 other copies in about this condition, and I find it to be real important because it's a little more on the rare side. And then the way the card holds up over time, it's even more important to get it into a slab because the corners on it specifically can get dinged. A lot of things can go wrong with older cards. As, we're going on 30 years. Last video, realized this at 120. So I was looking at the centering. We can just go ahead and jump right into the grading of this. The centering, and I would look at a lot of the cards. I'm going to be zooming in just with the phone, and I apologize. Last video, I tried to hold in the card far more, and I don't want to say it was disastrous, but not my best work. So if you see zooming going on, it's really just to amplify a certain part of the card to talk about it, and I apologize if my zooms aren't always perfect, but we're going to talk a little bit about how because the anchor points on this isn't always exact, and how people rate the centering isn't always exact. So whenever I saw BGS give a centering 9.5 to this card, I'll be able to tell you definitively on multiple cross-reference cards that you can almost see like there's a slight black, almost like halo kind of border around the ball. And when you can see all of the border and then just a slight amount of silver on top of it, that's in between a 9 and 9.5 as far as the centering top to bottom. So top to bottom, I know we're good as far as how they interpret the centering. It's a 9 and 9.5. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down. I'm going to give it a 9.5 to be honest for the top part of the centering on the surface alone, right? We're going to get to the back and it's going to get even more apparent. And sometimes I've seen them be lenient on the back, but I'm not. So you're going to see me be a little more strict on the back centering. That's what we're focused on first. So left to right, I'm looking at the left side right now. And you kind of see how much of his wrist is currently, I have a pen here. This is better than my finger. So you can see how much of his wrist is noted. And that's in between 9 and 9.5 again. What I would really like for the anchor point to show, let me double check and make sure that's focused. So what I would really like the anchor point to show and definitively state, it would be the amount of space from this point on the logo to like this point on the logo. So that would be the logo point for the left centering on the front. That would be the logo or anchor point for on this logo to the bottom to the, and then again, there wasn't much anchor points on the top. So I'm just going off of where the ball and the border of the ball for the top. But now over here, I've seen this, to me, this is pretty close to being the same distance. I don't even know if this is the true anchor point. So what I will say is looking at the wrist to the left and then them giving a 9.5 to 9, I'm also going to be giving it a 9.5. So that is the left surface space between here and here. I'm giving it a 9.5. Now the bottom, one could say, hey, Matt, that is a little less than that to there. So I'm going to give the bottom a 9. And then the right, which is, I'd say, slightly difficult to be able to pin down. We could use the font here. Okay, crash zooms. There'll be crash zooms, and I'm going to apologize now because I'm on a smartphone. So apologize now if there's crash zooms. Probably going to happen quite a bit. It'll be part of the grading process. Apologize up front. So you can kind of see that space from the, and you can use font, as I would hope be able to use font as an anchor point. The amount of space between the N and the right. Now, is that the same between the space on the left side? And I would tend to say that's less. We can get out the ruler and actually measure it down. We can actually see how much less that is. So it looks like we're getting, now what's interesting is that 34 millimeters is the average. What I was just pulling up on the last card is the space between the centering. So this is pretty close to 3 millimeters. We come over here and we check from here to here. That's 4. So again, like I'm going to go down to probably an 8.5 on the right scores, and the back's going to be even more. It's like clear as day how this back's going to line up. And we'll kind of zoom out real quick. Crash zoom, hopefully not as much. So now one could say like, hey, these, I guess they're, I don't want to say bullets, they're screws, because this is a nuts and bolts. This is nuts and bolts now. It's in the same 1995, 1996 Fleer set. This is technically not nuts and bolts. This is just silver spotlight. This is technically off the base. So again, I'm going to be looking at the amount of space from what's going on to the left here, what's going on to the right, which to me is pretty similar. Looks like there's a little less. We'll be a little more strict because from the top it seems less than from the bottom. Let's look. Not much, but I could say like that's like a 2 millimeter and that's like a 3 millimeter. So I'll go ahead and mark that. Left to right is actually not bad. I shouldn't have been really stringent on that right on the front, but I'm going to hold myself to it. So the top, I think, is not as I would like it to be. So I'm going to say the top on the back is an 8.5. Right to left, I'm going to give 9.5s to right, left. And then the bottom up again, it's not going to be perfect. So I'm going to give it an 8.5. So when I review the scores, add them up, it's basically a 9 to 8.5. That would be a 9. And then not 2 9s and a 9.5 on the front right now. Kind of hit, so it leans towards 9 on the front. It's in between 9 and 9.5 on the front, but I'm going to stick with 9. And then on the back, I have, that could be 9, 9, so 9. I'm giving the centering on this card a 9. And to be honest, it's pretty fair. It's honestly pretty honest, pretty accurate, if you will. Now here comes the edges, and we're going to zoom in. A lot of crash zooming. We'll start with the front. And this is where the card, I don't want to say go off the rails, but is where we got to hold it accountable. Because that's where the cards, I don't want to say imperfections land, but can land for sure. And this corner down here is, I would say, a pretty good target for imperfections. Now, I specifically bought this card and other similar cards that has a pretty strong corner down here. We're looking at edges, but I think edges bleed in 2 corners, so that's really strong. I don't see many problems with that corner. Let's try to look at this edge and see if we can find any imperfections. Again, it's like if I were a professor, I've been an assistant professor before, and a student submitting this, what grade would I give? Would I say it's 100%? Wow, that's perfect? No. That edge at the bottom, I can see some imperfections, so I'm going to give it a 9. So the bottom edge on the front is a 9. It's just, whenever I say crisp, it's that right part there is not as crisp as the right side of the card, which is actually interesting because it's usually the other way around. And I think everybody's going to probably enjoy the fact that I'm not holding the card throughout this whole video, and we'll just do it this way for the future. Now, you can see, I can see some right there. Right there. And we can even zoom in possibly a little more to... Oh, let's see, crash zooming, I apologize. It's just not perfect. I'm going to give it almost an... I could go with 8.5. I've seen them get pretty strict with that. So that's on the left side. I'm going to say 8.5 for the edge. That's the left, 8.5. You got to be honest, with yourself. Because, actually, I've seen some people be very lenient. I'm not going to be as lenient. I'm going to be a little more strict. The first card I did, I realized We'll take a look at that whenever we get to the surface. We'll take a look at that later. I'm going to give the top edge on the surface a 9. We kind of looked at this. That's pretty good. Pretty crisp. Not too many imperfections. I'll give it a 9. So that was 3 9s and an 8.5. I'm around to 9. And the front will be getting 9 on the edges. Now let's take a look at the back edges. And again, if you didn't watch the last video, I am counting the edge and the corners as the top, or the front side of the card and the back side of the card. It's just what I find to be the most accurate, because the card does have differences on the front and back. So this will be the back right. It's not perfect, right? You can kind of feel a little bit whenever there's the card's like white cardstock and then there's a different color such as this gray, you really start to feel the imperfections. And one could say, no, that's almost perfect. Well, I'll give the right side a 9, but then we're going to hit it a little harder on that bottom part. So edges, right side, I'll give it a 9. Being a little lenient there. But we're going to kind of get into here and say, okay, that's not good. That's an 8. We're going to ding it. We're going to go, the bottom edge is an 8. And that just feels right. Now, some people might say, well, what's the level of degrade? The level that it's, I don't want to say eroded, but the level of imperfections. If a student submits that, it's in between an 8 and an 8.5. To be honest, like, if we think about the whole quality of an edge, but now if it's going to get 100, it has to be pristine. It has to have no flaws. Clearly a flaw on that edge there. I wouldn't call that the corner. I think we all know what I'm talking about, but we can kind of point. So I'm giving it an 8. It's just being honest with myself, and it's actually not that bad. It's in between an 8 and an 8.5, but we're going to go with 8. Again, here, I'm going to give it 8.5 for that, because I just said I could go in between the two. So now we're on the left, on the back. We're just going to give it an 8.5 because I can see a little bit of wear. Sometimes imperfections are not always as bad. That top, again, it's between an 8 and an 8.5. Let's see here. Say 8.5. So we have a 9 on the front for the edges. And then basically the back scores are 8.5, 9, 8.5, 8. So 8.5 on the back. And then it's going to play into the front is a 9, the back is an 8.5 for edges. So what's our overall score? And this is where I cross-reference other graded material, and specifically my overall grade, subgrade. For edges, I am going to lean towards the 9. Once say, hey, you're being strict versus you're being lenient. I'm going to believe that whenever we also pump it into Grok, it's going to say 9 as well. Whenever I saw the level of quality of cards on eBay that I cross-referenced, they gave this quality kind of a card a 9, PSA and Beckett. Now it's in between an 8.5 and a 9, and I do think the edges and the corners is where the imperfections land. But whenever I saw other cards, I'm going to be confident that this is leaning towards a 9 and not an 8.5 for the edges. Again, that's open for interpretation, open on the greater strictness / leniency. So, again, not a perfect formula. This is not guaranteed. This is my interpretation of the edges. If you disagree, let know in the comments. I'm going to start making this open to a discussion. If people are engaged with these kind of videos, it's great. It's really a a record of the grading process. So some people might be like, this isn't like super entertaining. Like, where's my entertainment? Where's my eye candy? Some people who really get obsessed about these Michael Jordan cards are going to find this highly entertaining. They're going to say, is my card worth grading? Put it underneath your own cell phone. Zoom in on it. Do you see imperfections? Look at other cards online that are graded. Is it the same level of imperfections? That's where I'm arriving at my scores. Not guaranteeing them, not saying this is gospel, just saying this is what I personally believe. All right, so let's get into the corners. And really the biggest corner to this card for anyone that watches it, that consumes part of their life with it, which I have because I have 10 copies of this card. This is one of my favorite cards, by the way. This bottom right corner on the front and on the back is where I think it's the most damage I've seen. But, since I bought this card, and I bought it specifically because it has less imperfections than other copies. So right now I'm using a 10x kind of magnifying glass to look at this corner. You can use a microscope and really just drill into it with a 100x, 1000x. But I'm going to give this bottom right corner on the front. I don't see a lot of wear to it. That's the reason why I bought it in a little bit higher quality. I'm going to give that bottom right corner on the front a 9. Let's see this bottom left corner on the front. I'm going to give it a 9.5. It has even less imperfections. And this is actually how I also take photos of cards whenever I'm posting to eBay, is I zoom in on them with my cell phone. And by all means, steal whatever good ideas I may have or may not have, and don't use the bad ones. But people want to see zoomed in. So you can kind of see here a little bit, I would say. It's in between an 8.5 and a 9 for me, this top corner. I'm going to give it 8.5. Let's be a little more stringent. We'll be a little bit faster because I don't think everyone needs to see every part of the grading process. I will get faster at this. 8.5 again on that corner. So for the front corners, we have 8.5, 9, 9.5, 8.5. So that equals those out. So it's in between a 9 and an 8.5 for the corners on the front. I'm leaning towards 9 just because based on the other scores that I've seen, feel free to open for interpretation. So really where I feel the bit of the more imperfections laying here in this is the edges, which we did, I think, mark down to an 8. Yeah. But the corner, I think we can agree the corner's not as bad as the edges on this particular area. So I'm going to go with 8.5 for that corner. This corner, let's see. Not as bad. I'm going to give it a 9. I'll probably get faster at this over time too. You're seeing the second edition of this. 9.5 for this corner. This is my hobby, you know, in the end of the day. Let's say 9.5. So I'm going to give it a 9. One could put these corners down as an 8.5 for a subgrade. I'm leaning towards 9. So far we've gotten 3 9s. And the last part is the surface of the card. So we can zoom out just a little bit here. Take a look at, is there any print lines, any imperfections to the surface? So you can I think it's an embossed look. You can see the outline of Jordan's arm there. See a bit of his head. That's on the front side of the card, but I'm not really seeing a lot of imperfections on the back surface. So probably giving it in between a 9 and a 9.5. On the front. So it's in between a 9 and a 9.5 for the subgrade on the surface of this card. And I may give it a 9.5. I'm going to go with 9.5 on the front, and the back is a 9.5 for the surface. I'm not seeing any major issues. So overall our scores are 9 for centering, 9 for edges, 9 for corners, 9.5 for surface. That overall score, I believe it deserves a 9. So it was cross-referenced with other cards. It was measured. It was reviewed underneath good couple different microscopes here. Count the cell phone microscope. So just a couple different ways, and then I'm going to pump it into Grok AI after this, and you'll see a blog post that's on crescentvale.com. So thank you for watching, and I appreciate you following along as we grade these cards. And I'm just going to have it public on the YouTube channel. I don't know exactly how many do I have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the cases that I'm using are these. Okay, so I have 7 more. This will be the second. So I'll have 6 more after this that I'll be grading on the 35 point. This is a little bit just regular card stock. And then I think I have like 3 to 4 of the 130 point. So it'd be about 10 total, 10 videos of these different grades. And feel free to watch, feel free to skip, and just, if you're purchasing, have this in-depth analysis. But thank you for watching, and have a great day.